All right, let's move on to item number 8. I see Sen Member Chiu. Item number 8, AB 1184 by Sen Member Chiu. Welcome. Please begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Senators, appreciate your consideration of AB 1184, which would strengthen patient confidentiality protections for those who are not the primary policyholder for their insurance. At this time, there are many people who are not the primary policyholder for their insurance. We're talking about individuals who are on their partner's health plan, or in many instances, due to the Affordable Care Act, young adults who are staying on their parents' health plans until the age of 26. In some instances, primary policyholders may receive information about the type of care provided that a patient may not want revealed. In some instances, it could actually even be dangerous for a primary policyholder to receive information about the services that a patient on their plan has received. For example, a woman who's accessing reproductive care or care related to domestic violence may not want her partner to know she's accessing that care. A transgender youth may not want their parents to know that they're accessing healthcare services. This bill would update existing patient privacy laws to do a number of things. First, it automatically ensures that communications from the insurance company regarding sensitive services as defined are confidential and not sent to the primary policyholder. Second, it expands the existing definition of sensitive services to include behavioral health care and gender-affirming care, extending automatic confidentiality for those services. And third, it ensures that patients who aren't receiving sensitive services have a pathway to request confidential communications from their health plan. I want to take a moment and thank the chair and his committee staff for their deep engagement on this bill. I'm committed to taking amendments in Senate Judiciary to do a number of things to clarify that confidential communication requests apply to all services, not just one or a few. And secondly, to remove the explanation of benefits from the list of documents in which health plans must notify patients about the CCR process. And let me just also mention that in recent days, we've heard some opposition suggest that this bill might be changing existing medical consent law or changing the age of consent for services. I want to be very clear that that is not what this bill does. All we are doing is ensuring that folks who need confidential communications can receive them. And with that, I'd like to return it over to our main witnesses. We have Molly Robeson with Planned Parenthood and Tommy Martin with Equality California.
Thank you so much, Senator Chiu, and I appreciate, again, you taking the amendments, which will be taken up actually in the Judiciary Committee. That's why they're not before you. I think people have should have received a copy, but they won't be taken up until Judiciary. So with that, we're going to first begin with Molly Robeson from Planned Parenthood, who's up in the gallery. You have 2 minutes, a total of 4 minutes for both witnesses. So if you go over, just keep in mind that shortens the time for your compatriot. So we'll begin with Molly Robeson. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Molly Robeson, Legislative Director at Planned Parenthood Affiliates of California. We represent the 7 Planned Parenthood affiliates who serve over 1.4 million patients annually across the state. Planned Parenthood is sponsoring AB 1184 to continue the important work advocates and lawmakers undertook when they passed SB 138 8 years ago. Since SB 138, patients have continued to find it difficult to exercise their rights under the law to get confidentiality for their health care. For Planned Parenthood, confidentiality is at the core of its role as a trusted healthcare provider. Patients should be able to access sensitive services like reproductive care, gender-affirming care, mental health care, or STI care without fear of their private information being exposed. When a patient seeks care, they may not realize that their information about the care they receive could be disclosed by routine notices from their health insurer. This is especially true for minors and young adults who are on their parents' insurance. Anyone who has had to navigate coverage issues with their health insurance knows it's not a simple or easy process. And patients who rely on other people for their healthcare coverage should not have the burden of enlisting the help of consumer rights attorneys and advocates in order to ensure that they get the medical care they need confidentially. Healthcare is personal, and this bill simply expands who can receive confidential communications from their insurance and ensures that patients and their information are kept safe. For these reasons, we're proud to support or sponsor AB 1184 and would urge your support. I also want to thank the chair and staff for working with us on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Moderator, please bring onto the line Tommy Martin from Equality California to also provide testimony in support of AB 1184.
Thank you so much, Chair and committee members. This is Tommy Martin on behalf of Equality California, and we're very proud to support AB 1184, which will continue California's legacy of protecting vulnerable communities, including LGBTQ plus people and transgender people in particular, while other legislatures outside California are launching assaults against them. And this bill will improve the way insurance communications work. So currently, patients who are under someone else's plan have the option of submitting what's called a confidential communications request, or a CCR, to their plan. And as the author described, a CCR is supposed to ensure that only the patient receives documents relating to that patient's care, which is particularly important for people seeking LGBTQ plus specific care who do not have supportive families. The reason that CCRs don't always translate into full confidentiality is that health insurance is complex, and not many patients are equipped to understand how to navigate it. So here's one example. In 2016, an LGBTQ plus patient filed a CCR. He confirmed that the CCR was in place and therefore was confident that his information would be protected. He proceeded to obtain PrEP, which is a highly effective HIV prevention medication, and which gives people more agency over their health and their well-being and their future. Patients who are on PrEP also undergo routine lab tests as a condition of staying on the medication. And information related to these services was disclosed to the policy owner, which in this case was the patient's mother, and this led to him being forced to out himself to his family. So this patient made a responsible decision to safeguard his health, and in doing so was stripped of the ability to come out on his terms, in his time, and in the way that would be safest for him. So this bill will help to give patients the privacy, dignity, and safety that everyone deserves when seeking health care, and we respectfully urge the committee's support today. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. We'll now move on to witnesses in opposition to AB 1184. We have two lead opposition witnesses to please bring on to the line: Stephanie Watkins from the Association of California Life and Health Insurance Companies, and Susan Arnell from the Right to Life League. Can you please first bring on Stephanie Watkins? Each of you have 2 minutes, total 4 minutes between the both of you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Stephanie Watkins on behalf of the Association of California Life and Health Insurance Company. I'd like to first express my appreciation to the chair as well as the author, sponsor, and committee staff for their willingness to hear our concerns and the lengthy discussions we've been able to have. Regrettably, as the bill stands today, we remain opposed. As was previously referenced, this measure seeks to expand the manner in which an enrollee or insured can submit a request to have their medical information redirected to an alternate address, often referred to as a confidential communication request, as well as the obligation of plans and insurers to honor those requests. Unfortunately, as we started this process, we did not fully appreciate how broad the intent of the bill was and had mostly focused on the privacy issues related to sensitive services and the need and desire to update the original legislation to ensure our most vulnerable patients and services receive the full protections intended by the originating legislation, SB 138. As some of you may remember, SB 138 was originally drafted understanding the critical balance of ensuring patients have access to important privacy protections, while also appreciating the administrative burden that would be placed on plans and insurers. Implementing this type of accommodation is not as easy as it would seem. Not only requires an initial workaround by the plan, but it also requires the plan to continue to track each request and to ensure the accommodation is being appropriately acknowledged and honored by all vendors. As the bill currently stands, the obligation on plans to honor confidential communication requests will no longer be limited to sensitive services, but instead will be broadly applied to all. Currently, anyone has the right to request a CC&R, but HIPAA allows for some flexibility for a reasonable standard to be applied, which allows the plan some flexibility. AB 1184 removes that flexibility and requires plans and insurers to honor all CC&Rs. The unknown volume of requests, as well as the potential administrative burden and cost this could place on plans and insurers, is certainly concerning. Additionally, the most recently proposed amendments include an extensive list of notification requirements. While we appreciate the importance of ensuring all enrollees and insurers are aware of their rights, the notice provisions seem to go beyond and above what would be considered typical. With that in mind, we would like to continue conversations around this section to ensure that we aren't inadvertently applying the notification provisions inappropriately to communications such as appointment text messages, etc. With that in mind, we continue to be opposed to this measure, but look forward to future conversations if this bill moves forward today. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Now let's bring on Susan Arnell. You now have 1 minute and 40 seconds to present.
I'm Susan Arnold, an attorney with the Right to Life League. AB 1184 forces insurance companies to keep secrets from parents. Keeping secrets hurts children and families. California already allows children the ability to consent to a variety of medical and psychological services while keeping parents in the dark. AB 1184 forces insurance companies to keep abortions, sexual assault treatment, drug abuse and mental health treatment, cross-sex hormones, puberty blockers, and sex change operations secret from parents. Child predators and sex traffickers rely on secrecy to manipulate their victims. So a pimp can take a girl as young as 12 years old to get treatments for STDs or an abortion. Someone else can manipulate a 13-year-old autistic boy to seek sterilizing puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for rapid onset gender dysphoria. Minors 12 and over do not need parental consent for these medical services under our current state law. These procedures are covered by insurance, and AB 1184 will ensure that parents never find out. That helps those who abuse, traffic, and manipulate children by keeping treatments secret. Domestic abusers rely on secrecy to continue their abuse. If a young woman's boyfriend rapes her, AB 1184 keeps her treatment for rape or STD secret from her parents who are paying for it. Victims of domestic abuse need family support to encourage them to report and end cycles of violence. And if she's abusing drugs or is suicidal, AB 1184 makes that company keep that secret from her parents too. And AB 1184 may contribute to insurance fraud. What if insurance mistakenly bills a policyholder for one of these sensitive services for someone not covered under insurance?
Please wrap up. All right.
You can't dispute what you can't identify. Please don't make insurance companies keep secrets from parents. Vote no on 1184. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're now going to move on to additional witnesses in opposition to AB 1184. Begin with the public gallery. Name, organization, position only, please.
My name is Greg Burt with the California Family Council in strong opposition. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no one else in the public gallery, let's move to room 112. Seeing no one in room 112, moderator, please open the lines for witnesses who wish to testify in opposition to AB 1184. Name, organization, and position only.
Hi, my name is Kennedy Lindsay. I used to be an ambassador for Planned Parenthood, and I am in strong opposition of this bill.
Thank you. Next line.
Tony Rosales with Capital Resource Institute in opposition.
Thank you. Next line.
Karen McDuff, mother, grandmother, elementary school teacher, strongly opposed.
Thank you. Next line.
Yes, hi, my name is Erin Friday. I'm an attorney, a loving parent, and a member of the California Parents of Rapid Onset of Gender Dysphoric Children, and I strongly oppose this bill.
Thank you. Next line.
Hi, my name is Ted Hudaco. I'm with the I'm a parent. I'm with the San Francisco Parents of Rapid Onset Gender Dysphoric Children. I lost custody of my child.
Just name, organization, position only. Are you opposed?
I am absolutely opposed to this bill.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Next line.
My name is Ellen Way. I'm a concerned mother from Riverside County, and I strongly oppose this bill.
Thank you. Next line.
Hi, I'm Renee Yasamura. I have a teenage detransitioner, and also I'm an assistant controller and part of the
Are you opposed to this bill?
With gender dysphoria. Opposed.
Thank you. Next line.
Hi, my name is Priscilla Nichols, Bakersfield, California, mother, grandmother in opposition of this bill.
Thank you. Next line.
Jane Coviello, parent, grandparent, strongly opposed.
Thank you. Next line. Thanks very much, moderator. We'll bring it back to the committee. Are there questions or comments from committee members? Senator Melendez.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Assemblyman Chiu, good to see you. I have a great number of concerns with this bill from a parent's perspective. I certainly understand what you're trying to accomplish for adults, and I do recognize that SB 38 put much of this already into statute. But as a parent, I'm trying to understand how it's a good thing that a child who's going through something that could be life-changing or something that's really an emotional difficulty that they're struggling with, how it's okay to keep the parents from knowing that in an effort to, for those parents or their caregivers to help them through that. And your children, your son, he's little, so you haven't experienced yet the emotional roller coaster known as teenagers. But I will tell you, it can be a struggle, and teenagers and even, preteens typically, they don't like to talk to their parents about a lot of things. We didn't. I'm sure there were things we would prefer to talk to our friends about or someone else, but certainly not our parents. The same holds true for today. However, that doesn't negate the fact that children really do need their parents' input and guidance and counsel on some of these issues. And by passing legislation like this means that the parent has no hope of even being able to address it. And I think about a child, a minor, who is accessing mental health services. Now, if a parent doesn't know that this is taking place, and a parent doesn't know that this minor is seeking these mental health services, perhaps being given medication to treat it, how in the world is a parent able to recognize the signs that something may be going terribly wrong and be able to reach out and help them? And imagine the guilt that would overwhelm a parent if, something were to happen to their child and they were ignorant of what was taking place. That's a terrible burden to place on a parent who likely loves their child. Maybe they're having some difficulty and some differences, but still loves their child. So for that reason, I am not able to support your bill today, but I wonder if perhaps you could comment on some of those concerns, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Absolutely, I would be happy to. And let me just start by saying, as a parent like you, all of us care very deeply for our children, want to ensure that they are getting the best care possible. I'll say a few things. I understand that for many of the opponents of this bill, we all may have a bit of a philosophical difference of opinion on a patient's right to privacy and the right to choose, but I do want to make it very clear what this bill does and what it does not, because I think the opposition's arguments are a bit misplaced with regard to what is current law. So the opposition has been asserting that somehow this bill will allow children to access medical care in secret from their parents, and that statement is just frankly not true. This bill doesn't change anything about existing medical consent law. It doesn't change what services a minor can consent to without parental sign-off. So there are many laws, state and federal, on minor consent that give minors the right to access services like pregnancy and abortion care, mental health care, STD services without parental consent. And so I appreciate that. I think a lot of opposition may wish that those laws were different, but this bill doesn't impact that. So just want to make that clear. What this bill does say, though, is if a parent if a patient, let's say a young person, can consent to a sensitive service without their parent, then they should be able to receive communications on that care that is confidential. So that's what this bill does. Again, I appreciate that we may have a difference of opinion on the age of medical consent and when that could happen, but that's a different bill or a different conversation.
And I appreciate that, and you're right. I think many of us would prefer that those laws weren't in place so that we could, be there for our kids when they may need us, even though they may not be open to discussing the issue. But I think also the heart of the bill is that it really is sealing this whole evolution in a vault so that a parent has absolutely no way of knowing what is going on with their child. While it's true that, existing laws will allow them to access this care without their parents' knowledge, this bill goes further to make sure that any billing information is also kept confidential and is not sent to the parent who is the policyholder, who is, paying for that insurance policy. So it really does lock it away so that a parent just has no knowledge of it, and that's a core issue. But I appreciate you making the clarification. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Senator Leyva.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank the author for bringing this bill forward, and I also thank him for his clarification. I do also think that the opposition is confused on what this bill does, and I believe that they may want to change current and existing law. But I would also say that many of the people who called in opposition are probably the ones who need this bill the most, because most of these parents are not parents who would be accepting of their children if they are different from societal norms. You've all heard me talk about my daughter who is gay, and when she came out to us, she said, "I always knew I could come out to you." But you probably also heard me talk about her friends that we knew whose parents kicked them out of the house when they said that they were gay. So all families aren't loving, all families aren't accepting, and this is about making sure that children have access to the health care that they need. I wish we lived in a world where every family accepted their child the way they were, but the fact is we just don't. So thank you, Assemblymember, for bringing it forward, and I look forward to supporting the bill today.
Senator Rubio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to thank the author from San Francisco for bringing this forward, and I'm glad that he clarified the issue at hand and that existing medical consent doesn't change. But I also wanted just to share, this bill just simply gives patients the ability to make better health choices, and better health choices clearly make for healthier, longer lives. I also am very pleased that the author included in this bill, it expands to include intimate partner violence, which I believe is also very critical. As a survivor myself, an advocate for victims, I do understand just how important it is to keep some of these services confidential. Sadly, and too often, violent partners will resort to reproductive coercive control, which means literally making every decision for the victim, their partner, and allowing these victims to be able to make decisions for themselves and get the care they need without fear of retaliation. I think it's important. In my opinion, this may mean the difference between life or death for so many of these victims. And I really do appreciate the fact that, I want to acknowledge the concerns of the opposition. I'm not a parent, so I wouldn't understand, but I do want to validate some of their concerns. But I just think this is so important, and it'll help so many people. And I just would like to say thank you to the author and the chair for working out some of the, I believe there were some differences and came to a conclusion to recent amendments. And with that, I'd like to support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from committee members? Yes, Senator Eggman.
Thank you. Just also thank the author for bringing this forward. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and certainly can understand how people start getting nervous as their kids develop and grow. But I also understand that kids need to have safe places to go and people that they trust. My daughter had a difficult conversation with my wife the other day, and our big takeaway wasn't it great that she could have that conversation? And I think that's where we all need to continue to work, is to have relationships with our kids where they feel comfortable coming to us and understanding sometimes and trusting in them and in our relationships with them that they're going to come back around and are in a responsible way getting the help that they need. This is about access to medical care, which I think is important, and nobody would argue with that fact. So I would thank the author for this bill, myself, on behalf of the LGBT caucus as well, and ask to be added as a co-author.
Senator Melendez.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just with respect and deference to the author who is here, I just want to offer an apology to the callers who called in opposition. I know there were some derogatory comments made about how they feel and what's in their heart and what kind of parent they are, and I don't think anybody in this committee certainly would know what type of parent they are or what's in their heart. So I just wanted to offer that apology. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments from committee members? Okay. Seeing none, no further comments. Senator Chiu, first of all, I want to thank you so much for working with our committee, and also want to thank the sponsors and taking those amendments. And we did try to address, I might make note that one of the opposition was the health plans, is to try to address some of their concerns about burdens. But I also make note that that under federal law, they actually have an obligation for non-sensitive services as well if those services are potentially life-threatening for that patient. So in other words, they already have to have some kind of mechanism to try to address even non-sensitive services as well in place because of federal law. So we did want to simplify things for them with the amendments in terms of what they had to do, but also recognizing that by federal law, they also have to have a similar mechanism in place, and so we can line those together. So hopefully hopefully that did help address some of that. Certainly, I know that you, Sen Member Chiu, will continue to work with the health plans if there's other things that need to be done to help still implement what your goals are while addressing if there's other technical issues. But I think we tried to address that in those amendments. I would also make note that I'm a pediatrician and a parent of a teen and a preteen. So as a pediatrician, of course, take care of many teenagers. But before I talk about that, I want to acknowledge what Senator Rubio said. This isn't just about kids. We sort of talk about domestic violence and how, unfortunately, this information could be used to actually increase control, increase domestic violence. So we need to recognize that, and we need to give those tools to patients so that they have those tools. But also in terms of children, when I see a child and they want to disclose something to me in a visit in privacy, I do always encourage them to discuss it with their parents, all right? I mean, that's what we want to have happen. That's ideal. But at the same time, we also know that if they knew there wasn't the privacy and that unless I only did it with their permission, they wouldn't disclose in the first place. And what we do know is that children, if they can get adult guidance, are going to make better decisions. So the issue then becomes, well, if they don't feel comfortable enough, and I know it's something that can, as a parent, you always want your child to feel comfortable to tell you everything, but let's face it, that's not reality all the time, right? For whatever reasons, dynamics, whatever else, and that doesn't have to do with any judgment on terms of what, the parents care for the child. We're talking about teenagers, right? And adolescents who are growing up trying to become independent. And sometimes they just don't feel comfortable telling us as parents. But if we basically close off all avenues for them to then talk to another adult where that privacy can be maintained, including physicians or other healthcare providers, that actually can lead to poor decisions being made and also endanger their health and safety as well. And so I think it's important that we have laws that, by the way, as mentioned by the author, that already protect the privacy. Those policies were established for good reason to help support youth, but also that we don't have a situation then where administratively through their health plan that basically undermines those particular privacy laws. And that's why to me this bill is so very important, and really appreciate you, Assembly Member, for bringing it forward and your sponsor for bringing it forward. And with that, would you like to close?
Thank you. Well, I think many of you have stated what I was going to say in my close, but I, first of all, again, just very much want to appreciate the chair and your engagement, and to the plans. As I know, we've worked for many months to address the concerns that were raised. We thought we had gotten there, and then in the in recent days, we realized there was this one last issue, particularly to ensure that as we're putting this in place, we're doing this with as much administrative efficiency and simplicity as we can. So appreciate the chair's engagement with our coalition to ensure that, and happy to continue conversations on that front. As was pointed out by the good senator from the San Gabriel Valley, this bill is not just about ensuring access to health care by young people. We want to assure that adults who are in or have experienced violence and intimate partner violence situations, family violence, domestic violence, that their health services are confidential if they happen to be on the health plan of their partner. But to all the parents who have taken part in this discussion, for me, again, as a parent, and I know this is true for our colleague from Stockton and from the Inland Empire, we want to ensure that all young people have access to health care. And many might be in challenging situations at home. If they are LGBTQ youth, if they are struggling with different elements related to our healthcare system, that is first and foremost what we're trying to achieve here. And it's, again, important to note that this doesn't prevent, for example, a provider from having a conversation with a parent, but we want to ensure that if a minor can consent to a sensitive service without their parent, then communications, the bills should also be confidential. So very much appreciate the conversation. Hope that folks can support this bill and respectfully ask for your aye votes.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I don't think I've received the motion yet. Okay, it's been moved by Senator Leyva. The motions do pass, but first be re-referred to the Committee on Judiciary. Consultant, please call the roll.
Han.
Aye.
Han, aye. Melendez.
No.
Melendez, no. Eggman.
Aye.
Eggman, aye. Gonzalez. Grove. Hurtado. Leyva.
Aye.
Leyva, aye. Limon.
Aye.
Limon, aye. Roth. Rubio.
Aye.
Rubio, aye. Weiner.
5-1 right now. All right, the current vote is 5-1. We'll put the bill on call.